Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Realising the Genetic Potential of Your Herd for 2025. Look, I suppose it is good to be here in Cork this morning. A good spring this year, good calving. So it's about to take a break, about to take a rest, and then to regroup and look at our breeding for 2026 season. Today, of course, we have a number of guest speakers, and it's a good show put up by Teagasc and Munster Bovine and ourselves at Dairygold. We have Stuart team in the Moderator. We have Michael Ryan, farmer there, Dean's Grange in Cashel, and he'll tell his story about breeding, what he does. It's a fairly simple story, but it's about following process and keeping routine right. Then we have Dennis Howard, and he'll go through the Semen element from a breeding point of view, and we'll have Alan Dillon and Corrin from ICBF. They'll talk about CBV and the value of that and DairyBeef index, and then we'll have a live demonstration of a couple of weanlings to show the difference in CBV between 2-star and 4-star, what's the difference. And then we'll have Stuart will go through the cows then at the end, the high maintenance cow, 650 kg roughly, and 550 kg. So welcome again this morning, and further ado, I'll hand you over to Stuart Giles.
Okay, thanks Billy. So welcome everybody. So Billy's outlining kind of the outline for today. We're going to start with Michael, and we'll just have a few slides here, I suppose, to put a bit of context around this, okay? Hopefully you can see on the screens there. So we can skip over that one on myself and Michael, we don't need that. So the important thing is to point out that the genetics that you choose in the next couple of weeks and what you've chosen down through the last number of years is very important in terms of creating the potential that you have to actually deliver milk solids. And it's actually very interesting when you look at it, and I suppose we're maybe in that position, maybe you don't take the time or you don't have the necessity to do it. But when you look back maybe a couple of years ago, and it works two ways, and it actually worked. Michael will comment on it at some point as well. To see the progression that farms have made in the last 10 or 15 years is actually quite phenomenal. You don't probably realise it as much when it's going from year to year. There's incremental increases, but actually if you go back 10 years and see what you're supplying maybe in terms of milk solids 10 years ago and where you've come to now, it really is quite astonishing, I suppose. But it's the genetics that have created that potential, but the important point is that there is a management element, and that's why we've asked Michael to come here today as well. He has the genetics, and many people have the genetics, but they don't realise the full potential of those genetics, and Michael is going a long way towards realising the potential of the genetics that he has in his herd, okay? Just to, I suppose, reiterate the whole scenario around EBI. So EBI is there since 1995, 30 years ago now. It's amazing how time goes by so quickly. I'm not going to, there's a lot of numbers on that obviously, but basically what this is information that Kevin Downing has sent to us that highlights the EBI performance broken down into the bottom 20% up to the top 20% for the Dairygold herds, okay? That are in Herd Plus. And I suppose we'll just focus on these columns here. Probably the pointer won't be visible on the screen, I'd say. We're looking at the average here. So the average for Dairygold is €186 in EBI, 105 cows, 74% milk recording, 64% only in Herd Plus, 5,173 litres. Okay, I'll stop there now for a second and I'll just pull to the left. Top 20% of herds with EBI, or in EBI terms for Dairygold, are delivering 5,653 litres of milk, okay? So nearly 500 litres of a difference. So that's just to dispel the myth that EBI is potentially breeding the milk out of cows, okay? So we'll move on then. So the average supply to Dairygold is at 435 bone fat and 358. Again, top 20%, 454, 3.69 protein. Delivering a total of 478 kilos of milk solids versus 423. So that's 56 kilos of a difference. And if we put that in simple terms, I suppose we'll do a simple, so at €6 a kilo, 50 kilos, €300 a cow of extra revenue for more or less the same input in a lot of cases. So Patrick Bowen, the guy that works with us in up the country, looks at the financial side of things a lot. and he found, looking at discussion group stuff last year where he had profit monitor information, that farmers that were in this category, the top 20%, were basically delivering a lot more from the same inputs. So 1.2 tonne went in 2023 on the analysis that Patrick did on the average herd and the top herds, but they got more out. They got more out because they're better grassland managers, they have better genetics, so they get a better return for what they're putting in, okay? Cell count, that's a management thing predominantly, but there is a certain genetic element to it as well. I suppose the milk price is the one where this rings true. So with more litres at a better value for the litre, so a better litre as one of the guys described it as. So there's 2.2 cent of difference there. So you put that across your 500,000 litre supply, there's a couple of €1,000 there that is being left behind basically by not realising the potential of the genetics or not having the genetics in the first place, okay? The other thing that's very important, and again we'll see it with Michael's reports in a minute, is fertility. So people talk a lot about adding milk into their herds and so forth and looking for more milk in the bulls that they're using and so forth. But the most important thing in terms of driving milk production is actually cows calved and days in milk. So long lactations will produce the milk, okay? A cow that has huge potential to produce milk but doesn't calve until the 1st of June isn't going to produce a lot of milk for you. So if they have poor fertility, it compromises their ability to actually realise that potential for milk production, okay? The other key important facts to take note of here, I suppose, is the percentage of AI bred replacements. So a huge number of AI bred replacements in those top 20% of herds versus 63% for the average. So that's something that people should be conscious of. We're we're 2 to 3 years behind effectively with the stock that you have if you're using stock bull breeding versus the AI that's available to you. So there's always a difference. It's about €70 worth in EBI, which is €140 in financial terms of a difference between stock bulls and AI. So, and that is consistent over the last number of years. Every time the lads in ICBF run those figures, that's the figure that we're coming back at. There's €70 of a void between them, or a gap between them, okay? Replacement rate, 21.7% versus 19.8% on average, and the parity, generally speaking, so it's slightly lower in the top 20%, but it's probably associated with expansion over the last 10 years. So the lower parity means that there's maybe an increase in the herds, younger stock coming through, and as a result there's a slightly lower parity structure. The final point then is, I suppose, the top 20%, whether we like it or not, carbon is a topic. It's probably slipped down a little bit in terms of concern of late. Water quality has come to the fore, but at the same time carbon is still an important piece and it's going on in the background. And these high EBI cows are efficient cows, and we'll see that with the maintenance piece in a minute, or towards the end of the demonstration, that it's the efficiency we're looking for, effectively. And they are able to deliver their kilo of milk, fat protein corrected milk at 0.9 of a kilo of carbon versus effectively 1 kilo of carbon for the average, okay? So basically, following EBI, and there's a caveat with that, I suppose, EBI is made up of several elements, and people have to be careful what they pick. And again, Michael will tell us what he's picking in relation to his EBI. So just EBI on its own may not necessarily deliver what you're looking for here. So you have to be careful in terms of what you're choosing, because you need to focus on particular parts of the indexes in order to deliver, okay? So we're going to move on to Michael's situation here. This is Michael's EBI report. It's important to note that the figure here is the 20th of April 2024. The reason that I have 2024 EBI report for Michael here is I'm going to show you Michael's crop performance report from 2024 in a minute. So the reason for the genetics that he had in the herd basically coming into the breeding season last year are the genetics that he would have had to deliver the potential that he had last year, okay, if that makes sense. So you'll see it in a minute anyway as to why or how it matched up, okay? So George Ramsbottom, some of you will be familiar with George. He's got a different stable within Teagasc at the moment. He's gone out of the dairy. But George did a bit of work a couple of years ago in conjunction with the lads in ICBF, where they looked at a load of the herd's milk supplies and their genetics, and they basically came up with an equation, or they were able to decipher an equation that can basically say that on the basis of their fat and protein percentages here, the PTAs here, that you should be capable of delivering X or Y, okay? So in Michael's situation, we have his PTA for fat here at 0.18. The multiplier that's used in the equation is 3.94, so that gives us 0.71, and that's added to the base of 3.93. And that gives us a figure for Michael for the 2024 production year of 4.64% butterfat production potential, okay? We have a similar one for protein. So Michael's PTA was 0.12 for protein last year. Multiplier is 3.83, and when we add the results from that to the 3.36, Michael is capable of producing 3.82% protein last year, okay? So 382 protein, 464 butterfat. If we look at the future potential, so what we are, when we in Teagasc as advisors are looking at reports for people at EBI reports, we're looking at trends across the lactation, so we want to see fertility improving here, we want to see the milk sub-index improving here, and we also then want to see that the young stock are better again, okay? That's forward progression, and that's the progression that I was talking about a minute ago in terms of, if we look back 10 years, where were we, where are we now? We can see huge progression in what people have done. But it's important to point out that bad genetic decisions, so bad decisions around bull choices, can have negative consequences for people as well, okay? So Dunnaberry always says that genetics is cumulative, so basically you're building on it year after year, permanent and cumulative, so if you make the right decisions this year, the stock that you have are a foundation stone for the next decisions that you make subsequently. But equally so, if you make the wrong decisions, so if you take that super high milky bull with low percentages and so forth, that's going to have ramifications for your herd for a good number of years, because it's going to take 6, 7, 8 years probably for to flush that stock out, and then there's the risk that they have an influence on the stock that you have coming subsequently in terms of your replacements as well. So Michael is going in the right direction. Obviously we wouldn't have him up here otherwise. Especially in the PTAs, he's making good progress in terms of increasing the potential for fat and protein. So it's the exact same equation, we're just using these numbers here instead. So it's 0.27 for fat percentage and 0.16 for protein. And it's given us a figure of 4.99% butterfat and 3.97% protein. So basically, a couple of years ago there were some people talking about the drive for 9, Limerick people were talking about the drive for 5 and all that. That didn't happen. So 397 protein into the future is what Michael is going to be going for. It's going to take a little bit of time for that to be realised at a herd level, because obviously these are the replacements that are coming in. They come into a herd of 150 or 160 cows. They're only a fifth of the herd. It'll take a few years. So again, it's important to point out that you have to keep making the right decisions year after year to actually get the full potential of them, okay? So that's the potential that Michael has. That was the potential that Michael had last year, so 464 and 382. We have it on the next slide anyway, just to hold it. So delivered 527 kilos of milk solids to the co-op last year at 473 and 375, okay? So in the top 10% effectively for milk solids, fat percentage and protein percentage. And I suppose it's probably worth pointing out that this figure, we don't necessarily get hung up on the litres. So the fact that Michael isn't in the top 10% here doesn't have huge ramifications for the kilos of milk solids that he delivers. He's still delivering high milk solids because he has very, very good percentages. I think that's really worth pointing out is, I think it was a 2.3 cent of difference we had, or 2.2 cent on the ICBF slide earlier. Whereas Michael actually has nearly 4 cent of a margin over the average Dairygold supplier on the value of the milk that he's selling, okay? So that's worth quite a lot to people, obviously, and people should be conscious of the decisions that they make in terms of breeding is influencing the price that they get for the litre, and obviously if we have good litres or a reasonable level of litres, then that adds up. And it's all for no extra cost effectively, so you buy a straw from whoever your local Munster person is, it's costing you more or less the same to put the best straw in or an average straw in, okay? So you just have to be very clear on what you want and try to deliver on that. And then obviously, look, we have Michael's cell count there is quite good at 125 as well. Again, there is a genetic element into it, so if we start picking poor health cows, there is a risk that we start to slip in terms of somatic cell count potentially, but there's also a management element to cell count and obviously machine management and so forth as well. Just the last slide then, before I start to ask Michael some questions about how he is operating, just from a fertility point of view, as we were outlining at the start, it's very, very important that cows calve more or less within the 12 months, obviously. So we want them calving down again in the month of February, as many of them as possible, or before Patrick's Day, to get good long lactations and allow you to dry them off before Christmas and get the break then over Christmas and so forth, but have gotten the full value from them, okay? So we need to push the fertility figure. Fertility has turned inside out in the 30 years since EBI came to the fore. In Ireland, it was started because there was such poor fertility, but now it's nearly impossible to not get a bull that has good fertility on the active bull list, okay? So, key driver for Michael will be 91% 6-week calving rate, and he was just saying there earlier that he calved 20 cows in 36 hours in February, and it could take 36 days now to calve the last 20, but at the same time he still has a lot of cows calved, and obviously availing of great weather conditions in 2025 spring, out of grass and getting good fats and proteins as a result of that, okay? So this figure's up here on these reports anyway. Sometimes why people don't achieve these is maybe calf goes to the knackery or whatever for whatever reason, and they just get clapped in on the knackery system before the registration pops in. So that's 100% and should be 100% for everybody. And then Michael, I'll get you to explain this in a minute in terms of 86% of your replacements are AI bred, but 100% of your replacements that come into you are AI bred, I'd imagine, is it? Yeah, so you keep all your own AI bred stock and you're selling off a few. Obviously with bulls in AI and so forth, you have some very good stock, bull bred stock, but at the same time, yeah, okay. Right, and then this is another one. So as I said at the start, management is very important in terms of delivering on the potential. So it's all well and good getting all these heifers on the ground, but if they're not reared correctly, if they're not at target weight, if they're not in calf, and they don't calve down in the 22 to 26 month window, they're basically going to fall short in terms of delivering their potential, okay? So weight target's very important. All of you out here that are in discussion groups will be familiar with John McCabe. John was working in the area for a good few years. He's up in the west at the moment. He's looked at data up there last year, 2,500 heifers weighed across the groups that he's dealing with up there. And there's 50% of those heifers have an issue in terms of weight or stage of development basically in the later part of the summer last year, okay? So stock, if you look at weight, sometimes you see stock tend to maybe truck along during the latter half of the year, don't get the gain, go into the shed at low weights, they don't gain in the sheds anyway in most cases, come back out maybe late, and they're not fit for breeding effectively, and Dennis is going to pick up a little bit on that as well in terms of how that influences sex semen performance as well, okay? So then back to the 2025 figures for Michael, €247 of an EBI, so very, very high EBI, putting you in the top 5%, I think it is, and then the EBI of the inseminations that were done last year were very high as well. So a real solid report in terms of milk figures and fertility figures driving the performance. So Michael, can you just tell us how you've actually ended up in this position, I suppose? How have you got the genetics that you've got?
I was always a great believer in EBI from day one. We bought into it. I suppose the background would be, even with my dad, God rest him, greyhounds were a big part of our lives, right? So breeding was always something we were very interested in. My own dad had a great passion to breed a great greyhound. So breeding from that perspective passed on to me when it came to genetics. Came to cows, I was always very interested in it, and I suppose, look, the logic is we try and breed the best with the best and hope for the best. It's what everybody hears that cliche, but we would have started off very much with because of where I'm from, in Dean's Grove actually is where I'm from, not Dean's Grange, but Dean's Grove. They wouldn't be the first person to say that now really, but because Dean's Grove were in front of the rock there at home, and we would have started off with a British Frisian through another obviously AI company because it's only up the road, the Vay, and that's what we would have done in the 80s in particular, because that was the AI technician that would have come into us. And my dad then learned to do the DIY himself in about the late 80s, early 90s. So that obviously gave us some greater opportunities then. ourselves then to use what we wanted to use and maybe get, give the attention that we wanted to give for cows to go and calf. And then I became an AI technician myself. I'm not sure, maybe 20 years ago at this stage now as well. So that's something I enjoy doing. I suppose this stage I have 3,000 or 4,000 cows I don't know what I within my own herd. Just to explain this figure in relation to the replacements, we had an out farm and the animals would be on the out farm, so we would do AI for usually in January for 3 weeks with the heifers. We pick them up to a natural heat, and we've had good conception rates there. Usually an average of about 75 to 80% were conventional. Now we did sex semen last year, it was a little bit less, and then we leave off high EBI stock bulls, so that will cover that. And we're trying to go from Mount Trash and County Laois that buys those heifers that come from those heifers again later in the season, so that just to explain that figure there. So yeah, so the EBI, I don't care what company is the best suited to Munster, whoever company has the best bulls, they're where I'm going to go, that meet the criteria that I want. And that will be high EBI, good protein, good fat. We're focusing an awful lot more now on health and maintenance. I like the way the herd is going. We're travelling a little bit further. We've done a kind of a farm consolidation in the last 12 months, so the cows have to walk 2 kilometres to the furthest away field. So I'm very conscious now of trying to keep my cows at a certain size, because look, it's pounds per square inch. The more she's walking, if she's 2k up and 2k back, and she does that twice a day, that's 5 miles. You're going to burn fuel. So I'm a believer that I don't want the cow too big, because if I have to lift her feet or I have to give her more TLC, well, she's a problem to me. I just don't want those cows.
And Michael, I suppose just on the title of the event in terms of realising the potential as well, it was interesting looking at your figures, and I've met you a good bit over the last few years, and we've done profit management meetings and so forth together. Like you would have actually been higher performance a couple of years ago. Will you outline how that performance has slipped a little bit and how you're hoping to address that now?
Yeah, we would have averaged around, in old money, we would have always been 1,500 gallons of milk or 7,200 litres of milk. Pretty much consistent across the board, that's what the milk record would be every year. Now that has reduced. To be honest with you, it's reduced because we got overly stocked. And I'd say if I was to ask people to stick up their hands here, I'd say I get an awful lot of people saying, yeah, overstocked is kind of the way we went. Now what used to happen was very, very tight for grass in April every single year. Magic Day never arrived. Magic Day never arrived. We were always under pressure in the month of April. And then you arrive in May and you say, geez, like the front lawn, you go down to grass, you want to grow in May. So next thing you say, oh, that feels okay, I'm not going to recede it this year. And next thing you get into a spiral over the period of 4, 5, 6 years where you don't recede. And next thing then, the cows are not getting enough of grass in their diet, there's too much silage going into the diet, and there's too much, now we're producing quality maize and all that, so the figures still are not so bad, but they're not exactly what they want to be. At the end of the day, if you can get the green stuff to turn into the white stuff, you end up with a serious product. And that's where we're going back to now again. We've reduced the stock rate on the milking platform to 2.5 through a fortune. Like we basically worked with a neighbour of ours, and they swapped with us, and we swapped with them, and it's working very favourably for me. Actually, it's going to revolutionise the system at home, that I can reduce the stock rate any particular time of the year, whether it be through drought, which is probably more realistic challenge where I am at home. We're obviously very fortunate. The only thing that'll stop me putting cows up in grass is snow. To be honest with you, other than that, they can go to grass pretty much every single day of the year. So if I go back to where I was 10 years ago, I say before horses came in, I had as much grass as I liked in the cow's diet, and our performance was better. We were able to achieve the performance an awful lot easier than it was, especially the last 3 or 4 years, where there was an awful lot of extra feeding going in. And always, when I was going on holidays, I kind of going to myself, why in the name of God do I always seem to need to have bales when I'm going on holidays? But I was doing it all the time, even though I never really realised this until I was going on holidays. I had to say to you're taking care of the cows, but Jesus, bales there, we need them. And I kind of going, fuck this is a pain in the pain, you know what I mean? So that's the problem. Just not enough of green stuff going into the cows. We're growing plenty of grass. Back in old money, we were pretty much comfortably able to go 15 tons, 16 tons. Now, the new money, I suppose, is 13. Hopefully, if we get a good year this year, we'll get to 14 again. And that's where I want to be. So, try and get back on the receiving track again. Do my 7 or 8, 10% of the farm. And we did an awful lot of receiving last year. So, we'll do 7 or 8% this year. We'll get back to where we need to get. Because at the end of the day, you can have a superstar cow, but if you don't put the right fuel into her at the right time, you won't get the performance.
Yeah, so just you were at 565 5 years ago, and it's kind of just coming down bit by bit. But obviously, look, there's been the impact of the couple of years that we have had, which have impacted on everybody.
We're back the same as everybody else. We're back 7-8% in performance for the last 2 seasons. And like this figure here probably would be the same. Bar for the year, like we've addressed the issue now. We've gone in heavy. We're feeding the cows really well at the moment now. They're averaging close to 29 litres a head at the moment. And I hope to peak over the next fortnight. So they're really performing very well at the moment. So I'd be hoping that we'll peak higher, perform higher.
Yeah, so I think this figure generally seems to be about 0.05 behind for a lot of farms last year, just on the basis of the summer coming the way it did and the spring being tricky as well. And then Michael's figure, and Michael's already alluded to it, basically the silage going in tends to lend itself towards butter fat, so that's why we're over-delivering in terms of our genetic potential and butter fat there. So Michael, I said it there a minute ago as well, like EBI, like we talk about EBI, and what worries me about EBI is that people pick on EBI alone, and you can get very different animals, and the lads will be talking about it, Rod and Alan will be talking about it in terms of CBV and DBI, that you can get very different bulls when you pick on DBI. Same is true of EBI. So what do you look at when you're looking at your EBI for the bulls that you're going selecting?
Well, I know the ICBF would have brought this very much in the last couple of years, especially about picking a team of bulls, but we would have always picked a team of bulls. It was just through, maybe not through design, but good fortune, this was always what we did. I would have guaranteed 17 bulls in my tank every year. That's 17. How will I have my 17? Well, I'd have 7 from the Gene Ireland, which I do support, and that's usually 7 by 7, which is 47 or 49 straws. And I'd have 10 other bulls then that I've chosen myself by feeding it into the sire advice. But I'd never buy any more than 10 straws from any bull, no matter who it is. He can be an Olympic champion, I don't care what his figures are, I'd never buy any more than 10 straws. That way, if you use conventional semen, you only end up with 3 dogs from that bull. How do you do that? 6% conception rate, just picking easy figures, we hope that better than that, maybe 65, 67%, but just say 60%. You end up with 3 daughters from that bull. That bull's not going to make a break. You know what I mean? He's just going to produce 3 daughters to come into the herd in 3 years' time. The other thing they do as well is, especially, I look at the sires of the bulls. I don't want any particular sire. Every year or every couple of years you end up with a sire that dominates the sires. And I just make sure that I don't have more than 2 bulls that I'm using by the same sire. I just have a quick glance, I don't want them all, because then once again, if that sire doesn't work out to be the superstar that he's hoping to be, he'll still turn out to be a good bull, but he won't turn out to be a superstar. Let's spread the risk across the board. So use a good, wide range of panel of bulls is really, really important. That's something we do every year. So I'll feed the criteria in. What I would be looking for is, I don't care if it's slightly negative in milk, it's really bothering me. Now when I say negative in milk, I'm not talking about minus 200, I'm talking about maybe minus 10 or 20 or 15, whatever, something like that. And somewhere in double figures for positive. I don't want this plus 200 or 300 or 400 kilos of milk, because that's only, in my opinion, putting water in the tank. I don't want that. Now there might be one outlier, there might be plus 150, but in general, I come back every year at about plus 20, plus 30 for milk. I have plenty of milk in the herd, I'm happy with that. To be honest with you, peaking, like, we used to peak at 32 litres of milk, and to be honest with you, it was hard to keep those animals going. I want to be able to go back to the stage where I drop my strip wire now, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, let the cows into the field, and we reduce the meal back to 1 kilo in the morning, 1 kilo in the evening, and hopefully then we drop it back to 0.75 a kilo in the mid to late May. That's it. That's all she gets. And she'll get plenty of that.
Okay, so you said there about not being concerned coming back from the 32 to the 29, right? So that'll bother some people that are out in the audience there now, right? But that doesn't mean that you're dropping in terms of revenue, because you have still a very good peak of solids.
Well, we'll definitely peak at around 2.6 kilos of milk solids per head. That's where we hope to keep it at that level going through. I'm old enough to remember, like, protein 350 was like, when I was in college, and that's not today or yesterday, unfortunately, but when I was in college, we went on to a farm or below in, somewhere around Cork or somewhere like that down in County Limerick, and protein 350 was the religion. Could you get to 350? Well, no, that's a different story. You know what I mean? The next threshold for us was to go over 360. Well, the next threshold now for me is, in time, is to have a 4% with a black and white. I don't have any jerseys, so it's a black and white. Our goal now, over the next 10 years, is to get to 4% with the cows with protein and get to 5% with the fat. And that's achievable. Like, we're doing the same things, getting enough of grass into the cows and getting the performance as good as we can, compacting the calf and keeping it that way. Get as many as your cows calved. I said to you earlier on, the most romantic day in my household is is St. Valentine's Day, because that's the medium calving date every single year. That's the halfway point every single year. We start calving around the last couple of days of January. We hit the halfway point every year around Valentine's Day. And that's kind of where I like to keep it. And then after that, then we'll keep the 6-week calving is really, really important. So that white book, in fairness, if I have to handle a cow in any way, shape or form, it goes down in the comment section. Or if she's slow to clean, or whatever factors at play, maybe milk fever, was she chronic, or maybe touch wood, we have no milk fever issue, but if I felt if I had to bolus or something like that, well, I'd write it down. Do you know what I mean? So when I go back looking, the next thing to say is, did she come cycling? So when I start tailgating the cows with about 2 or 3 weeks to go for the breeding season, next thing we get to a week before the breeding season and she hasn't turned up, well then I get the vet to have a look at her and try and submission rate is the other. You're wasting your time without submitting cows. You should not submit for AI, but by God you can't go calf. So submission rate is absolutely key.
Okay, so in terms of what's the plan now, we've obviously moved into, and Dennis will be talking about in a minute, a lot more sex semen being used. You've gone that direction yourself, but are you still going to use a bit of conventional? Obviously you kind of have a bit of scope in terms of a bull breeder as well, so there's conventional maybe going in that sense. But what way will you balance it out?
I'll definitely go sex with my heifers again this season now. Once again, because of the consolidation we've done at home, my heifers will literally be outside my kitchen window, so it'll make it an awful lot easier to manage them. They were on the out farm last year, we achieved 62% conception rate, but that was just once a day. Like they were 9 kilometres away from home. We AI'd every day around 11 o'clock, so we didn't follow the exact guidelines that you should follow, which is like obviously if she's in heat in the morning, you AI in the evening and so on. It was just way too much work. So I'd be hoping that if we have them at home and have way more flexibility when it comes to AI, and hopefully get into the 70-75%, and then you're really hitting the money for what you want to do. Because it is lovely, like in fairness, when they were born this year, you lifted the leg, I had one bull calf out of the whole lot, but in general, it is a nice way to be. Because look, my heifers are literally, that I'm keeping in the herd, that are out in the field at home, they're all born in the space of 12 or 13 days. Like, you can weigh your heifers, you can do whatever you like with your heifers, but a heifer, once you wean those heifers, it's going to stand out a mile if you're one that's anyway behind, because they're literally like one single blanket, like they're all in one size. So compact calving, I would suggest to anybody who doesn't have compact calving, go away and buy a few heifers, compact your calving, at least that's the easiest way of doing it. You're not going to breed your way out of it exactly. Try and compact the calving, and then if one group to mind, it's very easy to mind them, very easy to rear them in the shed. Try and keep the thing as simple as you can.
Okay, so just coming back to the management piece there, and you mentioned about quality silage and so forth as well, and you said as well that you are fortunate and it is a lovely farm in fairness that you have in terms of being able to get out to grass and so forth. But when you do hit the blips, or we'll say in the spring of last year, what are the management things that Michael Ryan does in order to still hit 530 and hopefully get back up to 560 into the future again?
Quality bales are key. Now we had a bit of red clover silage as well last year. I don't know, I might be going against the sustainability thing, but it's not hard to manage now, to be honest with you. In the sense that they're rocket fuel to feed, but they're extra work now. Sorry, that might be, we need to go public, but they're hard work. Jesus, trying to mind this field and keep it going. I don't know how long this field is going to last, but it's rocket fuel to feed. Let's call it spade a spade. It's great stuff to feed, but how long it'll last and managing it at the back end of the year and stuff, I don't know. I might be a true believer just yet, but it's great feed. So we have quality bales as well, we do stop. Now with the heifers as well, let's be clear about it. If you don't have good heifer calves, so our third cut went to our heifer calves. Well, to be fair, they're the best heifer calves we ever had. Like the quality of the silage was phenomenal. So I think you really do need to focus on their heifer calves as well. That's really important. But for the milking cow, quality bale silage, we take the silage as well. So the dry matter would be in the high 20s, could even hit 30%, and it would be 75, 76, 77% DMD. So this stuff is rocket fuel. You know what I mean? They do milk off it. We feed them in the yard, so they come in maybe at half one. We have a backlatch system or a elastic gap. They come in and they eat. Now, once again, the only problem then is your graze house, the deterioration is small, but you have to weigh up what you're doing there as well. So you have to weigh one up with the other. But quality bale silage. The problem with the pit is too much of the pit exposed. And that's the problem. Now it's easier to give in, it's easier to tell the young lad, the student, whoever's there, to give in so many grams of silage, but I would say bale silage is the best way possible.
Okay.
And I don't want to have maize though, I don't want to have maize. I'm trying to keep the thing as simple as we can. Maize, I suppose, is another quality way of doing it, but grass is the fundamental at the moment. Our cows are pretty much getting 12 to 13 kilos of grass every single day since they calved. So that's like a huge difference this year.
And if you do get the snow in and you're forced indoors for a couple of days or whatever, what way do you go in terms of meal levels?
Second pull, we try not to change the system in the parlour, because if you start doing that then you're very slow to go back. I found a few years ago when I started changing we've the IDS feeders from the pig feeders, and I just find if you pull down the thing, you're very slow to push it back up. I just find that, so we kind of, I say to the lad, give them 2 pulls in the evening if they're staying in. Now it would be very rare that they would be in for 2 milkings in a row. Now, just fortunately the snow came in early January this year, so no, they wouldn't be in for more than 2 milkings in a row. The way I see it is prepare the paddock and then open the gate. But if you have to go and prepare the paddock and flash them in, they say keep them in. But if you can open the gate and they're gone, you can't bring them back.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah. But you have the ground conditions there.
I have the ground conditions, there's somewhere to go in.
So, a fella that you know well, Sean Coughlin, he was on the podcast with me there earlier this week, and he was just saying that his concern would be that with the advent of the sex semen, that the likes of your herd and the likes of Pat Cronin that we had in Macroom on Tuesday will go down the beef route and be breeding beef off of really high genetic merit dairy stock. And you said it there already about the regular customer for the heifer calves that you have already. If someone were to approach you about breeding more heifers that they were willing to buy from you in order to increase their genetic merit, would that be something you'd consider? Or?
Yeah, well it is. If you asked me though 3 weeks ago, the answer would have been yes, but hopefully, touch wood, he ends up happily with his calves. I've got a new client for that. So I have a couple, actually I'm lucky I have a good few clients for calves. But very easy, I can open the tap and produce another 10 or 15 heifers, no problem. There will be good EBI, good figures. We've gone extremely selective. Now, so I presume with any animal in our herd that we lift the leg, SCC, temperament, they're straight down the DBI route. You know what I mean? We've got way more selective altogether. Because I can guarantee you, a mother would breed a daughter that's lame. Like this morning now, hey, my herd isn't perfect. I had a hoof pair in this morning for 5 cows, and just out of sheer coincidence, I looked at the mother of all 5 of them. All 5 of the mother had their legs lifted at some stage in their life. So get more strict about your cow. If you lift her leg, do not breed off her. I don't care whether she's breeding gold, breed a cow. Anyway, she's gone to a different place now, but 4, 5, 6. She was in her 11th year last year, and she was producing, in old money, she was producing €2,900 every single year. But Jay's every single year I lifted her feet. And I lifted her daughter's feet as well. So I've decided now, no way. Like now, if we're in today's money, I'd say she produced nearly €4,000 worth of milk. She was a gold mine, but she'd feed problems, and at the end of the day, we want to keep the thing as simple as we can. So I'd say get way more selective, try and keep good records, and if you think about it twice, beef.
Okay, so just then in relation to the sire advice and how you use it, how important is it to the farm in terms of the way you operate the farm?
I'd say,
obviously you've a good number of years of experience from picking the bulls, ever before sire advice was there, but you...
Yeah, just sire advice, look, what are we looking for? Good EBI, right? That's the first and foremost. We will look at the top of the list, see what's there. But you I go along down through the different traits that I want to pick. I don't go down through a malt Cashel, there's a load freaking 40, like there's a load in there. I look at the milk figure, I pick the range somewhere from minus maybe 30 or 40, 50 litres up to about plus 100. I'll go down then, I'll look at the protein, and I want something that's around 30 kilos of milk solids. Between fat and protein, 13 kilos of milk solids, good percentages. So like if you look at the kilos of milk, that'll sort out the figures down the way. Like, you're not going to get the bull, sorry to anybody here, but I don't want a watery bull. Like, I want something that's going to produce good quality milk. And I go down and now we've put a lot of emphasis on maintenance in recent years. I'm looking for a cow around 570 kilos in weight. That's what I want. So like we used to kill out cows before, they kill out 320, 325 carcass weight, you know. But the way I see it when it comes to maintenance, like, do you want a cow that's going to produce, in today's price, 3,000 or 3,300 euros worth of milk, or do you want 200 euros at the very end? You know what I mean? The difference between now killing out at 290 or 295 versus killing out at 325, that's 30 euros. Even if she was making 4 euros a kilo, it's 120 euros. Are you going to lose any sleep over that size of cow if she can do the performance in the parlour for 5, 6, 7, 8 lactations? Yeah. You know, so go down now, we look at the percentages as well. We want to 0.1 something for protein and 0.2 maybe for fat. We'll look and see what the options are. And then, once that panel is picked in, I'll look to make sure that they're not all buying one sire or not. So have a good range, and I'll knock them off along the way if there is. Now I might have I might have it a little bit too narrow and make the thing a little bit difficult for myself, but then I just have to broaden it and smarten it. So they play around for a couple of hours, and that's it.
And then in terms of the allocation element of it, of soil advice, how important is that to you? So there's about 4,000 herds in the country actually complete soil advice. There's 17,000 dairy herds in the country, so we've only about a quarter actually do it.
Like, when I pick my bulls, right, so I said I'll have 17 bulls fed into the system between the Gene Ireland ones and inbreeding is actually where, so you pick your bulls, forget about it after that. The bulls are in the tank, I contact the companies, they send me on the bulls. I've never seen any company do fusion sell this straws, you know what I mean? They'll send them on to you, no problem. They'll send them on, put them into the tank, you get your chart back from the ICBF and you have 3 choices there. So, like of a morning when I'm doing AI, sure, look, you do the figures, I'm milking 160 cows, you divide it by 20, I'm going to have, we'll say, whatever, 8, 10, whatever cows of a given morning for AI. We do 90% of the AI in the morning time, might do the odd one in the evening time, and so therefore I look at it, obviously, if I'm doing 3 cows at the same time and it's conventional semen, I'll obviously pick the same bull to make life easy for myself, or else we have obviously yellow and white, whatever AI I want to have, I can use it whatever way I want to do it. Now we do our own. We used to do morning and evening AI, but now we just do it in the morning time. We get the same conception rate. Now I might do the odd one in the evening time, which is difficult to do in the morning. Something what I was kind of taught to do was I have a refill pad. I write the number of the cow down, and if I had any issue with her, maybe was she difficult to do, hard to grip the cervix, whatever it is, I write down those remarks because it's the next time round that she repeats. I'll say right, we'll wait for her to be gone off rather than doing her fresh. And try and maybe use a different tactic to get her to more relaxed. Or whatever it is, maybe the cervix was difficult to get through and you had to do a certain thing, whatever. Whatever it is, it's important to write down the notes on the book for yourself that you know the next time. Now that's obviously an advantage if you're a DIY. A technician might tell you these kind of things, but it's just a bit of an advantage that I found works really well for that cow down the road. They're the kind of things we use I find really beneficial for getting cows and calf.
And then the last question for you then, before we throw it open to the public there for questions. DBI, say, have you started using that and what's your thoughts on it? Yeah,
I've used it for the last couple of seasons. Maybe it's the same for everybody this year, but the lads that all bought calves off me, they all ring me looking for calves. So I hope this life continues, like, you know what I mean? So they're obviously mad for calves. And they're obviously, these calves are, like, I'm using the Gene Ireland ones for the last good few years, so the same clients have come back to me. So they're obviously on the DBI as well. So yeah, I'm on the DBI, I'm using it. I said I support the Gene Ireland program as well for the beef animals, and they're throwing out nice stock. They are nice animals, yeah. There's some lovely stock, lovely shape of stock, and they're not going too far with their time either. Right? There's the odd one we go up to the full 283, but in general they're coming along fine. I suppose you have to use those mature cows. There's also that risk that you could get the outlier, there might be a big calf, but in general I used the All-Rack this year and that went very well. What was the All-Rack bull they had for Gene Ireland? AU 8517, it was my first time venturing into that. I have a brother-in-law that's very fond of the All-Racks and he raves about the stock, and they were lovely calves and I thought they were really nice, and the lad basically whipped them out of the yard. They were delighted with them, so fingers crossed they'll turn out nice now, and I'll keep going down that road.
And calving difficulty then with them as well, is like that's no matter what.
Now in saying that, you wouldn't want to use on a mature cow. It's obviously a risk with Gene Ireland, you never fully know, because obviously you don't have any background. Now I did use on one heifer. So like, just to be clear about it as well, with the cows, if I had a cow difficulty that evening, I might throw an All-Rack or an Angus into her, and that won't be recorded. Next spring, then you end up with an Angus calf. And you say, geez, how, you go back and you look at your notes and say, well, yes, I did give her an Angus, and you just have to change the sire. But so yeah, we have to get a calf. That's the bottom line.
Okay, so William has a microphone there if anybody wants to ask any questions. So the concern that I would have, I suppose, for people is that there's a perception out there that the type of cow that you're breeding, Michael, not your cows per se, but the perception is out there that they don't have milk and that they're small cows. And I think that could be true if you bred the wrong type of cow. So if you have the maintenance that Michael is talking about is kind of what we're pitching the maintenance at for the general population. There are some people that want smaller cows, there are people that want some bigger cows. Donnaberry will say, if you want to decide what size of cow you want, go out into your herd of cows, pick the cows, the 2 or 3 of the cows that you like most in your herd, and look up their figures and see what size they are. And if that's the number for you, that's the number for you. I'll be trying to convince you maybe a little bit otherwise later on. But that's the maintenance piece. But a high euro maintenance, which is a low body weight cow with bad milk figures, is a disaster. So you still need to focus on the elements that Michael's talked about there in terms of trying to get the genetic selection for the milk right as well to deliver the quality of stock that you want. But what you're looking for in that maintenance piece is to just make them more efficient, which is the carbon piece that we were talking about there earlier.
Well, we focused on trying to have our maintenance figure around mid-teens, or we're aiming at around 15, 16. That's the figure I want, because that's why 570 cow. Which our 570 is in the month of April, which is 50 early. That's your figure. So that's the kind of one that we're looking at. No, I don't want to, like, everybody's in their own stock. I don't want one that can jump up on our back and ride around the yard. I'm not looking for a little yoke like that one, to be fair, but I'm looking for something that is, I suppose it's nice to look at, but you know, there was a time we could have these cows big pensioned as others, and they're walking out and they could hardly get out of the shed. Like, that's not the kind of one we're looking at. We're looking at a nice tidy odor, you know, nice teeth, not too short teeth. You know, like, you get that, you know what I mean? You want those type of cows, you know, that come in and don't have any major problems, but not an overly big cow.
And then, just in terms of your milk recording information, Michael, would say the base cows in your herd from their milk recording point of view, what kind of milk do they produce in terms of litres, would say, or just?
We milk recorded 2 days ago, and there was cows doing 42 litres. 40 and 42 litres. Now, there's no selective feeding with cows at home, they're all getting the same feeding, but they're doing 42 litres, so those cows are up around 8,000 litres a milk. Yeah. 8,000, 8,500, but that's what they're doing. And those cows are the size that I want, you know what I mean? So this is what the potential of the mature ones are doing. So, like, they want to do 650 kilos of milk solids, like, no problem.
Yeah. Okay, so any questions? Shane is there as well with the microphone just behind you there if you want to. Yeah, Johnny?
Just to, you know, you said you reduced your stocking rate to 2.5 in the milk and fat farm. You know, there's a lot of farmers out there.
Right there, General.
Just in relation to the stocking rate of the milk and fat farm, personally I'm at a way higher level, and I'm not really convinced that I will reduce my stocking rate, because look, if I do, I'm going to be reducing my overall income, like. So, like 2.5 to me, I think it's pretty low.
So it was 2.5?
Yeah, is that what you said?
Well, 2.5, I didn't know I did say 2.5, that's correct, but the difference was, for me before, I used to have 50% of my land away from home. So now, we did a land swap, and now I have, simple figures is, we have 62 hectares available for the cows to walk to at home, right? Before we used to have 30 only a few years ago, now we have 40, and we've jumped up to 62 hectares. My young stock will go onto the home farm. My calves and calf heifers will go onto the home farm. So that'll jump the stocking rate, and also then you see, everybody to their own, but the missing ingredient that I was missing out on in recent years was not doing enough for reseeding. I think reseeding is key. You still have to do your 6, 7, 8, 10% every year. Like, if you don't do that, the pinches in the year is where the problem comes in. So, like, my stocking rate will jump up to around 3.1 from now until we say the end of August. That's what it'll jump up to. But I think I could push it to 3. Obviously, I'm milking 180 cows, still milking 160. But I have some of that land is rented, and I have to look at when we weighed up the advantages of, then I'd have to contract rear. And I'm reluctant to do that initially, so I have to weigh up that. Do I contract rear and jump up to 180 cows? And when I weighed up the costs and weighed up the options that were there, and also the flexibility within the system if I get extreme weather. Now, I said I'm from Cashel to Derry, and we get dry 2.5 weeks in the middle of summer, and we start to feel the pinch for reduced growth rates from a dry point of view. So I have to try and, like, 10 years ago, no reflection, I mean, but I had maybe more energy. I was willing to take on the challenge a bit more. My dad was there the whole time, and there was no problem to try bales. Labour is another factor. If you're going to buffer feed every time you have a pinch, well then that's a challenge. So I'm trying to simplify the system, and I think we'll get a better performance out of the cow as well. I think I'll increase my milk solids this year by at least 25 to 30 kilos. That's maybe 150, 180 euros a head. I think you'll find your answer very quickly.
Okay, thanks. And just, you know, when you were
Doing
doing
out your bull selection, you find like, you know, that I've been looking at bulls as well, like, and there's a lot of bulls there, and I'd have to ask the question, like, how I never think, does the egg company put them bulls into catalogs? You know, we were talking about, you were saying that we all have responsibilities, like, but surely the egg companies have responsibility as well of putting some very poor bulls into the catalogs.
Yeah, but sure, somebody must want those bulls. That's just supply and demand. So they have to put in a wide range of bulls into the catalogue, because there's some breeder out there likes those bulls and likes those options. So they can't just narrow the pool to suit what I want or what you want. It'll be a very small catalogue. And maybe they wouldn't buy enough of bulls then, so that's another problem. We'll be hoping they buy the odd bull off us, like, but I suppose like any catalogue, it's up to you to pick what you want out of it. Now, when the man comes into the yard to do the ICBF and the eye technician, we've got to be a little bit stronger with the man or woman and say, well, this is what I want, not what he has in the day. So, like, be a little bit more assertive with him, what you want to pick, and the bulls that are in the catalogue that you like best, rather than just go with the flow on the day and take an easy option. Now, that's not directed at you, that's just a general comment.
So, no, well answered, Michael, in fairness. You're right, John, and Michael is right as well. Like, the lads are trying to sell straws, and if they go into the yard with exactly what Teagasc say, you mightn't get the sale. So they're trying to cater for all the markets. What is the responsibility of ye as the farmers is to demand the type of stock that Michael has outlined there, the type of stock that you are using yourself, John, and try to push the demand in that direction more so. I heard a comment after the Macroom event the other day. We tried that EBI route before and it didn't work for us. But it's like coming back to what Michael said there. If you went all high EBI, but you know milk selection or no focus on milk, and no disrespect to the technicians will put in high EBI if they're asked to put in high EBI. We had a very good example of it a couple of years ago actually with the DBI from a farmer up in Galway who asked for a high DBI beef sire for his beef breeding. And he got a DBI sire that was all easy calving basically and very poor beef. And he said he was nearly embarrassed trying to sell the calves to one of his regular customers because they just had no real beef merit. But he had made the mistake of asking for high DBI. High EBI can throw up the very same thing. You have to look at the index, you have to, just because they're number one on the EBI list doesn't mean that they're the bull for John Dunn's farm or for Michael Ryan's farm or whatever as well. So it's very important that we kind of dig in underneath that and make sure that we're driving forward on the requirements of the farm that we have ourselves. Coming back to Michael's point then, knowing that Michael was stocked at 4 cows to the hectare for pretty much the whole year for a couple of years, and he's answered it there himself because I was just doing the sum there as we're saying it, Michael. It's worth 210 euros at kind of 6 euros a kilo to Michael to get back to where he was 5 years ago. So we take out maybe a better milk price, less feeding, less bales, all that coming together. It's a sum that everybody has to do for their own farm, John. So there's a tipping point that everybody's going to come to. And I think Michael said it as well. A couple of years ago, we were on Michael's farm for a grass 10 award because he was growing significant volumes of grass. That volume has slipped because of nitrogen reductions and summers and springs being difficult with the last few years. So he has had to readjust, and people need to look at that. You mentioned it, Michael, that people might be overstocked and they nearly don't realise it in a lot of cases because you nearly didn't realise it, as you said. Just going on holidays was the trigger.
Going on holidays was the thing that was telling you that you were overstocked, because I always felt I had to have the plan in place for the relief milker to deal with. But I was doing it myself all the time. So I'm doing that throughout the whole season, and I'm trying to simplify the system, and I also think my cows will perform better. I just can't wait to drop the strip wire. And let the cows into a paddock and get going and fill themselves up and get really. Because look, in my opinion, and I've heard it said by somebody else, I can't remember, was like, for me the strip wire is controlled starvation, because you're all the time you're either giving them enough or not giving them enough, and then you're trying to buffer feed them. So just to get that young animal, the first and second lactation animal, to get that fill that they need. I see yourself, the minute you drop it, they come in and they're busted. You know what I mean? They get what they just can't eat enough. They can't eat as quick as that big cow that's going out there and mowing down the grass. So it's giving them a chance. But the key thing with the bulls with EBI is a team of bulls. ICBF will be preaching it for the last good few years, but make sure you have a team of bulls that have a wide selection of sires. Broaden your scope. Don't narrow it all down to this major superstar every single year. It happens every year. You go back through it. Widen the scope. A team of bulls. Do your work. for a few hours at the start of the year and then forget about it. And let the ICBF's sire voice do the rest of the work for you to avoid inbreeding or job is done. You don't need to be stressed over every time a cow comes in. If you have the chart and you have 3 choices, you pick one of them and that's it.
Okay, so any last question from Michael there before we move on to Dennis Howard? On there and on.
Michael, surprised to see you banished Cork colours
the week before that. Cashel is more King Cormac of all red. I knew you'd bring it up.
Just on the stocking rate, Michael, do you think the dropping the stocking rate used to be up at the 5.60, 5.70? Will dropping the stocking rate bring it back up there? Are you interested in chasing it anymore? And the other question is there, what is your criteria then for your bulls this year across the board? You were saying plus 20 on milk, where you want fertility, butterfat, protein, and head, or what do you not go below on those?
Well, obviously, fertility is a major thing as well, so we don't have figures there, but obviously you want to be a plus 120 or 30 euros. Like, look, at the end of the day, it's all about the cow milking for as long as she can every season. Like, I've girls at home that are going to calf for the next few weeks. Like, there's girls there that are calved for the last 2 months, getting ready to be AIs again. So this April calver we're trying to avoid those, but like we're just expanding at the moment, so they stayed on board. What was the first question again? I said Jesse, I can't remember. Or the performance. I expect the performance, yes. I definitely expect my performance to go back up again this year. Obviously the weather needs to play ball as well. But if the weather is anyway like a normal year that we expect to have, I definitely expect to get back up to the 540, 550, 560 kilos of milk solids. Because if you peak here, you can perform, but if you peak down here and you're dropping your 2.5% from the 1st of May onwards, well that's, so peak well and try to change the system back to where we were before, get the cows to know what it's like to produce a good volume of milk and a good performance. There was a time, like at the moment we're doing 345 to 350 protein at the moment, but like there's a good bit of grass in the diet. Just was times a few years ago we'd be doing 330, 31, 32, we might even dipping under that 330. So we're trying to keep the quality of the diet right, that when they get going and we get into the month of April, that we start getting consistently to the 350s and the 360s for protein. That's the fat in our herd has always been good. So try to feed them well early, front load, and then after that then we can ease the throttle when it comes to the feeding. So like in fairness now, like everybody, for the last couple of years we did feed that 1.1 and 1.15 tons per head, but we're trying to get back to that sweet point of around maybe 900. Maybe 850, 900. So like that's basically 3 kilos a head on average for the first maybe 10, 12 weeks of the breeding season, and then we'll drop it back then to 2 kilos during the breeding season, and then back to 0.75, which is the most minimum we can give in the barrel. From a management point of view, we feed that, and I don't pull it out completely. I just go on for management, and I think it's not going to make or break.
Loads of grass.
Grass is the key. Grass is the key, turning the green stuff into the white stuff.
Okay, we'll leave it at that, so Michael. So I would just like people to show their appreciation for Michael for that. My colleague Patrick McCormack, the local advisor in the Moore Park office here, and he's going to introduce Dennis Howard, and he has a few questions for Dennis then at the end as well.
Yeah, thanks Stuart, thanks Michael. So Stuart said our next speaker is Dennis Howard. I suppose there's been a big increase, I suppose, over the last number of years in terms of the use of sex semen. So I think nationally, even last year, I think over 20% of the dairy AI straws used were sexed. And I think we're up on 50% increase in sex semen in the last 2 years even. So I'm looking at the audience there's plenty of you using a nice bit of sex semen. So I think Dennis, you just go through the practicalities of using sex semen maybe for the breeding season ahead.
Thanks, Pádraig. So, hello everyone. So I'm just going to give a bit of an update, I suppose, of the state of play with sex semen, how it's been performing, and the usage, and then go through some of the, I suppose, the things we need to do to try and stack the odds in our favour and get the best results we can. So this is a slide belonging to Stephen Butler, and I suppose it's a nice infographic. It just illustrates what's possible with sex semen. So over here on the left, we have, I suppose, the conventional dairy semen, the traditional breeding season where the heifers and the vast majority of the cows got a conventional dairy straw, and even some of the repeats for the second 3 weeks were done in conventional dairy. And I suppose the resultant calf crop there, they were generating our replacements, so about a quarter dairy female, a quarter dairy male, and the rest then were beef after that. And I suppose the big difference, this is the extreme version, if we go all sex semen, the big difference is, as Michael was referring to, it gives us a chance to be very selective with the cows, so we can avoid breeding from cows, lower EBI, poor performing cows. And of course the other big difference then is the resultant calf crop. So we'll still generate our female dairy replacements, we're going to have a few males, but very few hopefully, and we're talking about maybe 3/4 of the crop, then the calf crop being hopefully high value beef calves. And I don't think anyone would fall out with having plenty high value beef calves to come through the ring here with the current prices. And of course the big, I suppose, this is lovely here in theory, but the big thing is we want to use sex semen and try and preserve our 6-week calving rate, because there's no point in using it for fertility, and our 6-week calving is going to be dropping because it's so important for overall performance. And I suppose the other big advantage as well then that Michael and Stuart referred to is the ability to try and breed, have your dairy heifer calves born early in the calving season, which is a big advantage as regards reaching target weights and management going on. So this is just a bit of data coming from ICBF for 2023 first inseminations. So over here on the left is heifers and the right is cows. You can see the number of straws here that were analysed. And the big thing here is these first inseminations, they were verified by 2024 calvings. So this is pretty accurate data. And this was the pregnancy rate in heifers for conventional, so it was 66%, which is a pretty good average. But remember, these are averages now, you're going to have people above and below. And the conception, or the pregnancy rate then for sexed was 61% on average. So, which gave a relative pregnancy rate of 93%. Looking at the cows then, so much bigger numbers there for the conventional straws and the cows, and big enough numbers of sexed as well. So obviously we're expecting to be lower, but still respectable, 57% and 50%. And that gave a relative pregnancy rate then of 87% in the cows. And I suppose the big thing to note really from this slide when it comes to sex semen is obviously we expect the heifers to be performing higher than the cows, but also the gap is less with sex semen in heifers compared to what it is for cows. So the relative conception rate is higher and the gap is lower. So I suppose the message here really is if we are going using sex semen to really think about prioritising its use in heifers. So I suppose what's different then about sex semen? So briefly what's different, and if we understand what's different, I think it helps us as regards what we need to do then to try and get good performance. So the first thing is lower concentration. So look, it is an expensive procedure. It's Sexing Technologies, the company, the international company that comes in to both ourselves up in NCBC and Dove, so it is the same company. And they will produce the straw, they'll put however many cells you want into the straw, 2, 3, 4 million. But I suppose, look, the decision in Munster was to stick with the 4 million cells in the straw. So that's a big thing, I think, trying to stack the odds in our favour as regards getting good results. So there's 4 million cells in the straw. And just to put it into context, a conventional straw then, we're talking about 15 million cells. So a lot less sperm cells inside a sex straw compared to a conventional straw. So the purity then, you'll often hear this word, the purity. So the purity is advertised as 90%, and that's what's been achieved, and not even slightly higher. So again, the little infographic here. So we take our 4 million cells in the straw. There's 3.6 million of them on average going to give a female calf. There's 400,000 of them floating around that'll give a male calf. So that's where the purity comes out of, and you can be, I suppose you can be unlucky or lucky. The lower viability then, so it has to go through this sexing process, so it has to take up a fluorescent dye. They have to travel down through the machine. They're travelling 50 miles an hour down through the machine. Depending then if they're going to be male or female, they're hit with a laser to put a charge in them. And then at the bottom, there's like a drafting gate. They're getting pulled left or right depending on the charge. So look, that's a tough process. And what that means is they don't last as long inside the cow. So sex semen doesn't last as long inside the cow, and that has an impact on our timing. And the last thing then is the difference. The last difference is this thing called capacitation. So all sperm cells, they have this protective coating, and they lose that coat. They need to lose that coat before they can fertilise the egg. And that process happens inside the cow for conventional semen, or even if the bull breeds a cow. And that process takes about 8 to 10 hours inside the cow. And I suppose the big difference with sex semen then is that because the sexing process in the lab is about 8 hours or 8 to 10 hours, we're inside this special medium, so they're actually after going through that process in the lab. That has a bit of an impact on our timing of AI as well. So looking at the timing of AI then, so this is the start to standing heat here, and ovulation happens then about 28 hours after the start to standing heat. And our egg, when it's released, is going to last about 8 to 10 hours. So the goal then with AI is we want live sperm cells above the site of fertilization, ready, waiting for the egg, ready and waiting to fertilize the egg. So with conventional semen, because it's going to last well over 24 hours, we can go in here from the start to standing heat and up to 12 hours after the end of the standing heat. So we know it's going to be AI here with conventional semen. It's going to last, it's going to travel up, and it's going to survive long enough then and wait for the egg and go through the capacitation. But then with conventional, if we go too late, we're going to run into trouble because it's going to take that 8 to 10 hours for the capacitation. With the sex then, if we go too early with the sex, we know it's not going to, it's probably lasting less than 24 hours. If we go too early here, it's going to be after running out of steam by the time the egg is released. We're going to get a poor result. But because then it's capacitated, we can afford to push the boat out. So a cow we might think has gone too late for conventional, she's probably going to be okay for sexed, because that sexed is ready to fertilise straight away. So that's the timing of AI piece. I suppose the next thing then is actually the AI procedure, and I suppose we need to make sure we're doing everything really, really well. Full stop really, but especially for sex semen. So the thawing, the semen handling, obviously we need to take great care of the semen handling to avoid any damage to straws. When we're actually thawing the straws, then quick transfer into the thawing flask, cool boiled water at the correct temperature, change daily, and the straws then loaded into pre-warmed guns. And I suppose from a herd owner point of view then, they need to get into the cow as quick as possible, so within 5 minutes. And yeah, that's part of that is down to the skill of the operator, the DIY or the technician, but the other part then is being organised so that you can have the cows separated, the technician can get to the cow quickly and get the job done. So then, I suppose the next thing then is the cow and heifer selection and management. So if we look at the cow piece first. So the first thing, they need to be calved long enough. So we're talking about February calvers, cows that are calved in the first month or 6 weeks. Cycling regularly. So I think if you're serious about heat detection, you need to know the cows that haven't cycled and the cows that are cycling, or serious about sex semen, I should say. So look, the collars are brilliant. From that point of view, they'll be after picking up the non-cyclers, and you know the cows how many cycles they've had. But really, I think you need to be doing a bit of pre-breeding heat detection, doing a simple job, and picking out the cows that aren't cycling. Younger cows. So this is a bit of analysis here from ICBF again, looking at the same data set I was talking about before, looking at the conception rate for conventional and sex, but here it's divided out by parity. So your first, second, third, fourth, fifth lactations, and you can see the best performers there. The best performers are actually the first lactations. We might talk about it afterwards, Cork. But you can see the first, second, third lactations, they're all up around 60%. Bit of a drop off to the fourth, and a nice drop off then to the fifth. So I suppose if you're looking at that, you want to prioritise the use in the younger cows. But the actual relative conception rate stays similar, but it makes sense to prioritise it in the younger cows and avoid the older cows. Good body condition then. And I suppose the big thing there really is to avoid cows that are that bit low in body condition. So pick out your cows, make sure there's not using any cows that are struggling. Healthy cow, healthy uterus. So Michael referenced it as well there. So avoid cows that have any good records. Avoid cows that have any issue during the spring, hard calving, twins, retained afterbirth, milk fever, anything really, avoid those cows. And then nutrition piece coming up to the breeding season to make sure that you're meeting their energy requirements. For the heifers then, the target weight is the biggest thing. So this is just a table looking at the maintenance figure. So if we take your kind of average cow there, the maintenance figure at 10, a mature weight of 590, 600 kilos, and 60% of that at breeding then is actually 350 kilos. So a fair ask to have heifers up to that weight for breeding. But I suppose, again, if you're serious about sex semen, the best you can do is weigh them, see where they are, and heifers that are struggling, maybe avoid those for sex semen. Again then, if they're above or on target weight, they're probably going to be cycling, and just to have the nutrition right coming up to breeding. So hopefully this year, a lot better than last year, that they'll be actually out of grass, well settled, and the grass will be growing to meet their needs. So I suppose just a couple of last things then. I mentioned earlier about, I suppose one of the big advantages of sex semen is that it allows you to be more selective with the cows. I suppose that's something we've been looking at, and there's actually potential to make huge gains inside your own door by being selective. So this is just a tool we're after developing, we call it the cow selector, and basically what we're doing is combining all the genetic information with the milk recording. So combining the two to try and pick out the best cows, or even probably more practically is to start dropping out the worst cows from a genetic and a production point of view. So we've just been trialing it this spring, and look, people are excited about it. There's a similar module in farm ops, for any of you that are using farm ops. When the breeding season kicks off, you get this kind of real-time information about the fertility side of things. There's also a module in it, a cow selector, so similar, that's where the idea actually came from. So again, looking at the milk recording and the genetics and picking out your worst cows for beef. Those breeding fertility notes, they're available outside. And I suppose the last thing is that, look, we're expecting the sales of sex semen to grow again this year, so already it is well ahead of last year. So look, there's plenty semen available, but there is bulls starting to run out. I suppose the more popular bulls are starting to run out at this stage.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Dennis. We'll have Shane and William again with microphones. If you have any questions, put up your hand. You know, in general, around the country, heifers seem to be in good condition, good target weights this year, but maybe if some heifers are behind on target, you know, we're a month away from breeding now, do we still stay away from sex semen altogether, or is there a chance, is it too late?
Yeah, a big difference anyway this year compared to last year. One of the big decisions last year, were you keeping heifers in to breed and were you out? It was as bad as that, but I think a lot of heifers are out now at this stage and doing well. Your question, yeah, if they're well behind target, you're not going to make it up, so I will be using sex semen on those anyway, but there's nothing wrong with using the ones that are suitable, and maybe a conventional straw for them ones.
And just in terms of cow selection, I suppose, we saw the figure there, you're saying roughly 12 to 20 hours, between 12 to 20 hours after the start of standing heat, that's the best time for insemination for sex. So I suppose, like might be a lot of people only doing AIN once a day. How many cows do you need to pick out for sex?
Yeah, sure. Look, the reality is most people are on a once a day service. I hear Michael, who's DIY there, who still tries to be once a day. It works perfectly well. You get the very same results. But to get the timing right, then you need to have more cows picked, I suppose, you know. So just say there's 100 cows, and you're after doing your selection, you've dropped maybe 40 out for beef. If you're using sexton heifers, you still have plenty cows, but it's so critical to get the timing right. So you want to be dead sure that they're in heat first of all, and and dead sure that they're going past the standing heat and they're in the second half of heat.
Timing is very important.
It is. If you're going too early with sex semen, the results will suffer.
So it's not the animal that morning. If the man is coming, a person is coming that morning. It's not the animal that's in heat. Then it's not
so yeah. If she's still showing any signs of heat in the morning, she's way too early. Such as the cows that were standing in standing heat the evening before, they started their heat then, during the day, so they're the ones that are spot on for the following morning.
Have we any questions from the audience? I think as well, there was a slide earlier on, there's been kind of a thought out there that maybe first lactation cows are under pressure.
And I suppose, look, this is what the data says, that the first lactations in big enough numbers were actually just marginally higher than pregnancy rate. But I think, look, it comes with a word of warning. Depends on the system, depends on how the heifers are looking. But I suppose if you follow the full criteria through body condition, health, and cycling regularly, that obviously there's going to be first lactations that drop out of it if they're struggling a bit. But if they meet the criteria in regards body condition, that they're cycling well, there's no reason why I wouldn't be using it with the first lactations.
And no issues, calf and either certain percentage or anything like that, they wouldn't get sex then either.
No, yeah.
So you're talking about 50 days calf, this criteria on the left, you're talking about we want to be, we're starting, say in a month's time, breeding, we're talking about, February.
Yeah, starting the 20th of April, you're talking about February or January calvers.
Have we any questions from the audience? One there, William.
If heifers are still inside at the moment and you're planning to start synchronization in a fortnight's time, can one leave them out in the meantime?
Yeah, I'd be trying to get them out. So if we're thinking about breeding on the 20th of April, so as it getting them out, or starting to sink about the 12th of April or something like that anyway. Yeah, if you can get them out now and get them well adjusted, and obviously they're a good order going out, you should be fine. But they'd want that 2 weeks out really to adjust and start putting on a bit of weight again.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'd be prioritising getting them out, getting them out.
Any more questions?
Just a question here, when it comes to tying the sex semen for DIY, is it very strict to keep it at 45 degrees? When you're tying conventional semen, you nearly could limit out time if you want to. It's not as subjective when it's 43 or 4 degrees, but is it very strict when it comes to sex semen, what temperature it is and how long it's called for?
It is, Michael, and there's lots of science behind it that what you want is fast thawing. And I suppose with slow thawing, or if the temperature isn't high enough, what happens is you get these crystals forming inside the straw, and these crystals can damage the cells inside of the straw. So yeah, that's the recommendations coming from sexing technologies actually, 35 to 37 degrees, 45 seconds. And I suppose you have lower viability cells, you have a lot less of them, so you want to bring as many of them back to life as possible. And when you're thawing any straw, you're doing well if more than half of them survive the freeze thaw and come back to life. So I'd say for a conventional straw, you're hoping 7 or 8 million come back to life. For a sex straw with 4 million, you're hoping that over 2 million come back to life. So that detail at that point is very, very important. So the height, 35 plus, yeah. And always check if you have an electronic flask of your, yeah. Those electronic thermometers are a super job. Is there a picture of them? Yeah. So they're quite cheap, those electronic thermometers. And the beauty of it is you can just have it on inside the flask and make sure the temperature is right. Yeah.
I think we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, Dennis. Good points there for the season ahead.
Just one question. Just
out after 45 seconds.
So I suppose what you do, you want is to get the two into the cow anyway as quick as possible. So load it into pre-warm, if the gun pre-warms or warm up the gun, load up your 2 straws, and if you're confident that you're going to have the 2 cows AI'd, you can get to the crush, you'll AI the 2 cows within 5 minutes. I'd load up the 2 guns. If you're not, I wouldn't be leaving one of them inside in the thawing flask and go off AI a cow and come back. I'd thaw it strong and come back. No.
But I just say you got distracted for you only thawing 1 straw and you got distracted for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Is it important to have it out after 45 seconds?
A minimum of 45 seconds. If it goes 10 minutes or a minute and 20 seconds, it doesn't matter.
Right, that's great, thanks.
Within reason, you know.
Sorry, just to follow that question, you said a minimum of 45 seconds, that's more so, it's better to be longer than short.
A minimum. So if you're a minute, it doesn't make any odds. Yeah. But there's a limit, Michael, obviously, you can't go to, you know. Yeah. The bigger, I suppose, just like watching a kettle boil, you put in the straws, the bigger temptation is to put them out quick, you know, that you're trying to get through. So the timer is a great job, just set it to 45 seconds and make sure they're properly thawed.
That's great. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for those tips and Semen. I'm going to hand it over to Dillon to introduce the next session. Right, thanks a million. Go through this a little bit quicker, it's just a small proper time here. Look, I was talking to you a bit about calves and making our decisions on beef breeding for this year. Look, CBV is what we've been trucking on about for a number of years now, probably 2 or 3 years at this stage. I would say, look, its effect at the minute, I'll admit, is limited, and probably this year has probably made it even more limited because, look, calves are probably in more demand. Beef price, €8 a kilo, has solved every problem. Okay? It solved the supplements problem, it solved the calf slaughtering problem, it solved the dairyman problem, moving the poor cat, it solved everything, right? If we can keep €8, we'd never have a problem again. But look, we might not, who knows? This thing has shot up so fast, it could drop us quick, we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But in any case, we have very strong data to show that making better decisions on breeding beef calves is delivering more for the person selling the calf and for the person buying the calf. Okay? So in terms of looking at using CBV, right, what is it essentially, if you don't know? It's a tool to identify the better calves in your farm, okay? Better beef calves, right? So you use better beef sires, cross them with your cow. You have different types of cows in your farm, obviously. Some have high beef Marts, some have low. You'll have better calves coming out, okay? Simple as that. Right, so how does it work? It's a euro value based on genetics of the parent, so it takes the mother and the father, okay? 6 traits from the beef sub-index and 10 from the Corrin sub-index. And it's generated for all cattle likely to be finished, okay? So who doesn't get a CBV? Right, I'm often asked this question because sometimes you look on your profile, CBV profile ICBF, and you don't see it, right? Why? Number 1, you've no sire. If you don't have a sire, you don't have a CBV because we don't have the data, okay? If the sire wasn't recorded in the same herd as the dam, if a matching AI sire wasn't recorded at some point between 270 days and 305 days prior to the animal's date of birth, okay? If the animal is a pedigree, if the animal is female and has calves, so if she's a sucker cow or a dairy cow, and mark boards will only display the CBV where we've recorded the sire and you have a genotype. So even if you record the sire, you're not in the genotyping scheme, it won't appear here, okay? So making use of it, you're assigned one of 3 breed types, you're given a star rating of 1 to 5, and the CBV value is available to everyone through a Herd Plus. Okay, so click on your Herd Plus profile, click on CBV, up she pops, right? It'll be available on the mark board, says where the animals are genotype, and these are the 3 categories, right? You've got your sucker animals, which is really relevant to you. You've got your beef by dairy, so you can see there, a 1-star one is under €44, and a 5-star one is over €124, right? And then you've got your dairy, right? So the dairy 1-star ones, which would be down towards probably more poor quality Frisians and crossbreds would be under €1 or maybe a negative figure, and some of the better ones, maybe a bit of British Frisian in them, etc., will be over €44. Okay, so that's where you're going, right?
And that's the way it'll appear on the barcode there. You can see that blue tagline with ICBF down the bottom. That gives you your CBV for the calf. So if you have your genetics in, that appears on the board. If you don't have it, you can print it off anyway at home if you're selling your calves out of the yard, right? And you can give it to your farmer. So here's what it looks like here, right? I know hopefully you can all see it here. I'm printing it away here, maybe. But basically, you get a profile there in front of you, and you click on your hair plus, click on your profile, and Dillon's down to DairyBeef. So you can see here at the top, the best one is 110 euros. It's a 3-star crossbreed. He's got 8.1 kilos for carcass, etc. And you can scroll down, you see down the bottom there, this is a dairy one, it's a good one though. A 44 euro one, this is a good Frisian we call it. He's 2-star crossbreed, but he's 5-star with inbreed, and he's typically negative for carcass. Nothing wrong with that, he'll be bought cheaper, and look, there's still a margin out of him because he comes off a reasonably straight cow. He'll be an O minus O equals animal, and he'll probably be 300 to 320 kilos dead. Right? So, does this CBV work? Right now, I know the figures are a bit small here, but I'm just calling out to you, right? Essentially, right, if we look down through the figures that we've got, you can see here the CBVs in the first column here across the board for the dairy ones, right? There's 59 euros, which would be a very strong Frisian, we'll say, in terms of CBV. The average carcass today was 325 kilos, and they're finished at 822 days, okay? So go down to the bottom then, go down to your very, very poor ones here. These are probably crossbreds, Jersey type breed, etc. would be negative on the beef trends, okay? Minus 42 euros, 274 kilos, and 858 days. Okay, so typically, right, we're talking about between the good and the bad there, you're talking about an extra 50 kilos of beef roughly to be produced, and you're talking about 30-40 days less feed. Okay, so if you put 50 kilos, even at, let's say for Frisian type animals, it's say 7 euros a kilo, that's 350 euros extra, and if you take the days of feeding, probably 100 euros. So in the top and the bottom there, CBV, you're probably talking 450 euros margin difference. Okay, multiply it by 100 heads, that's 45,000, okay? You're starting to talk about money then, right? So in terms of using DBI then, right? So this is for dairy farmers that want to breed, right? Decide which breed I would say that you want to use. It doesn't really matter. There's good and bad in every breed, okay? Be it an Angus, be it a Chardonnay, be it, you name it. There's the top and the bottom, okay? The biggest thing you have to do is select the appropriate size for your cow, okay, right? So we even have, you know, heifers, first calvers, second calvers, mature cows. They'll all take a different type of sire, okay? What I would say is, on average across the board, a simple way to work it is, right, you look at the DairyBeef index within the DBI. The overall DBI figure can be very misleading, extremely misleading at times, okay? I'll give you an example of that in a minute. But as a simple figure we always use, right, within the DBI, if you click on any bull and scroll down, you can see the DairyBeef index, okay? A minimum figure there, 100 euros, nice round figure, okay? Go up from there, okay? If the bulls are way below that, 50, 60, 70 euros, I would say leave it behind in most cases, unless you want some really easy cabins maybe for heifers or something like that. But by and large, you should be able to get very, very easy cabin sires that will produce the goods at a minimum of 100 euros. There's two types of animal then we'll say generally you're dealing with, you're either early matured or continental. Right? If you're early maturings, I would say 10 kilos of carcass is the target, ballpark. Okay? Most of the Anguses and good Herefords you get will be 10 kilos plus at this stage. And for the Continentals, I would say go 20 kilos or up. Okay? That's where you have to go. If you're below that, you're probably not at the races really in terms of the bull selection. Right? Now just explain, okay, why I said DBI can be misleading at times. There's two bulls here, number 1 and 2 on their Anguses, on the Angus breed on the DBI. Look at the first one there, he's AA7485, okay? He has a DBI of 192, okay? It's good, and he's a carcass of 17. Right, he's an excellent bull, top class, right? I would say, put him on most cows, brilliant. The second bull here, he's probably the popular one actually, AA4743. Okay, he's a bit back in the DBI, but not bad. He's quite strong in the DBI. He still has a good beef sub-index. Problem is, he's only plus 2 kilos for carcass. He's not much above that KYA bull that most of you were using there for a long number of years, you know, which would be very poor. There's a lot of good bulls down along the line. You can go down to the rest of them, 4089, 5286, 4088, they're all very popular. Okay, they're all in around that 10 kilos of carcass and thereabouts, little bit either side of it. Strong bulls. So look, I would say look at two things. Look at the DBI, look at the breed you want, pick the beef sub-index over 100 and just check that carcass figure, okay? Look, by and large, everything on the DBI is easy calving. There's nothing there that will break a cow and cause trouble, by and large. They're all, even with the continental breed, and vast majority have no issue with gestation length. If they were negative for dairy farmers in terms of gestation length and carcass weight, they would be very, very lowly ranked. Okay? So you just have to look at those two figures, but these are the decisions that you kind of have to make when you're looking at that. Okay? So breeding a better beef calf, I'd say the last two slides I want to touch on before I hand it over there, we're looking at a few calves going through the ring, is to look at your own herd, okay? So you can identify your own dairy beef sub-index within your herd, okay? The beef sub-index of your own herd. Simple way of putting it is, if you have a herd that is very low in terms of the beef index, you have to increase your gain in terms of the type of bull you're using to try and produce good calf. Simple way of doing it, right? If you're at the average of the 5-star herd, you're +2 in terms of the dairy beef sub-index. If you're in the bottom 1% of the herds, the average of that, you're about -18. The average of the country is -5. Okay, so you can check your own figure and you can work back and base it off that. Okay? And finally, the last one there is just, look, this is just a table here. I wouldn't pay too much attention to it again. The main message I'm trying to get out of here is, look at your herd. Try and work out exactly what you need to produce a 4 or 5-star calf. If you have a bull, a herd, very low beef merit, you will need to probably move that target carcass weight of that bull to between 20 and 30 kilos, regardless of what the breed is. If there's an Angus, you'll be up at probably nearly +18 or 20. If you're at a continental, you'll be talking, pushing up towards 30 to 40 kilos. Okay? There's lots of variation, there's lots of options available now in terms of you're picking bulls, and really look, you will see it in times to come. It's going to be a couple of years again, probably when beef prices drop, and calves may not be wanted again, people might move away from it, etc. And you're going to, maybe some people will struggle to sell calves. And this is where the likes of you that pay attention to this, put in a little bit of effort, just picking a few bulls, and talk to your AI company or whatever, or look at your stock bull, whatever the situation may be. Where you put in the effort here, you will be rewarded, and it's the year that the calves are tricky, is when you'll really see the benefit of this. Okay? So I'll hand it over.
Perfect, thank you. So we are going to look at a couple of abandonments there in a minute. There's one thing I would say, and the lads mentioned about bull teams and all that it's also important to consider selecting a team of bulls in the beef side of the house as well for your herd. There's massive variation even within herds in terms of the beef merit of your cows. You can have a black and white herd, they all look quite similar, but you can actually massive variation in the beef merit of the cows in the herd. So from that perspective, you might have certain cows in the herd produce that really good quality calf, you need to use a stronger sire on them. And I suppose also on the sire side, you've cows in your herd, some of the older cows, they're capable of taking a bull with a higher calving difficulty without having any extra calving problems. And I suppose a lot of farmers, they just kind of pick their dairy bulls and they would pay too much attention to the beef bulls, but I really would encourage people to pay a bit more attention to the beef bulls, pick a team of them as well. You can put them into sire advice, pick a team of bulls, varying calving difficulties, all high DBI with as a strong beef sub-index, and then you get the sire advice will allocate those bulls to the cows in the herd to try and maximise the value of the calf while minimising calving difficulty. So today we do have 2 animals, 2 Anguses. They are about a year old, and they're just a good example of kind of beef merit. So you have 2 Anguses, they're actually the same AI bull. He's AA4, where is he there? Yes, he's AA8472. So there's 2 of them. So there's 3780 and 3784. 2 different Anguses. They're all the same bull, but they have very different figures in terms of CBV. I suppose that's largely down to the cow. The 2 cows are very different. So the first one, and we might get them up there, and you'll be able to have a look at them. You have 3780. So this one is 320 kilos, and if you look at it, and I suppose this is the challenge, and I suppose we have a lot of breeding indexes in the country, we've been using them for years on both the beef and the dairy side, but I suppose it's always a challenge for farmers who are buying cattle to try and get an insight, whether you're buying dairy beef calves in the Mart, or whether you're buying yearlings like this, just by looking at the animal to try and judge how good it is compared to the rest of the ones for sale, which one should I be going for? So this one has a CBV of €54. And just if you look at within the crossbreed types and what these mean, is look, generally when farmers are buying stock, they're buying a specific type of stock. So they're buying dairy beef calves, or they're buying dairy males, or they're buying suckler stock. And just that within breed figure is just within that grouping, dairy beef, dairy, or suckler, how does this animal rank? So this animal ranks as a 1 star within the dairy beef group, so it's quite low, and look, it's 2 star across. So it is quite low, it is a negative carcass weight, so it's not a great animal in terms of CBV. But if we compare that to the second animal we have, which is 3784, this animal has a much higher CBV, so €164. And bear in mind they're both from the same bull, the same sire. If you're going in buying calves from a farmer, he's using the same AI bull, you can still have 2 very different calves. So this second one again, they don't look that different, but in terms of CBV and the actual genetic merit of these animals to put on weight, there is a significant difference between the 2 of them. And again, within breed types, so just look at the dairy beef, that's a 5 star on CBV within the dairy beef population. So a much better animal in terms of if you're buying to try and finish them and to try and turn a profit. As I say, they're both from the same sire, so he's a high DBI sire, but their CBVs are very different. And if we just look at the cows that they're actually out of, this is where a lot of the difference is coming. There's a very different beef merit from the 2 cows. The dam of 3780, the lower one, the dam has a beef sub-index of €15, while the dam of 3784, the better one, has a beef sub-index of €5. So they're 2 very different cows, and as a result you get 2 very different calves in terms of beef merit. So that's, I suppose, where it comes back to. With some cows, you need to be picking stronger bulls on them to produce a better calf in terms of CBV. Like massive variation in the herd, even if they're all black and white, they all kind of look the same. You will have variation, and that's why when you're picking the bulls for those cows that maybe are lower beef merit, to try and pick a bull that's stronger on the DBI and specifically the beef sub-index for them. When you have the genomics, that will feed in as well into an animal. A lot of the animals now are starting to be traded our genotype because of the National Genotyping Programme. For anyone selling in the Mart, if they are genotyped, their CBVs will come up on the Mart board. So that's all I have to say on them. I don't know if you have a comment on there. Any questions? All happy? All going to go by the right one now. Perfect. Thank you very much. Just an important point to make, I suppose, in relation to the dam is very important as well. So the bull is the same in both cases, and the importance of being careful in terms of the selection criteria for the actual bull that you're going to use for the given cow. Okay. So the next piece of just one minor piece here in relation to the grassroots bonus from a Dairygold perspective. They've added in the 0.1 of a centilitre to the bonus scheme in relation to the genetics, which relates to EBI and to DBI. And the DBI, I suppose this is important because it's a new element in 2025, and DairyBeef index is a recommendation for this year, but will be a prerequisite for 2026. Okay, so to be eligible for the bonus in 26, you're going to have to take some actions in 2025, and they are to genotype every beef stock bull that's been used in the 2025 breeding season, record the sire of all calves born in 2025 on the database for ICBF, and to use AI bulls or stock bulls that have a minimum of 3 star and for our dairy beef index and or across the breed, and a minimum of 3 star rating on the beef sub-index on the dairy beef index within or across the breed as well. Okay, so just the final piece of the jigsaw for today is in relation to the maintenance sub-index. So, take note of the weight there. So these 2 cows are just examples of the maintenance sub-index. So again, it's coming back to efficiency. We're talking about trying to deliver cows that will produce lots of milk, but don't consume a lot or need a lot in terms of themselves to manage their own system. Okay?
So if you look at the table here behind me, we have maintenance sub-index ranging in the table from -10 up to 30 euro. The higher we go in euro value terms, the lower the body weight. And we have examples here, so 12.55, the cow that sits standing in the ring, and the other cow that's going to come in, 12.55, has a maintenance sub-index of 15 euro. So she should be in or around the type of cow that Michael was talking about a little while ago, at around 570 kilos in her come the 1st of June, okay? So at the moment, she's 505 is what she weighs. So she's a couple of months obviously to get over peak milk and start putting on condition, and she should be in or around 570 come the middle of the summer, okay? So that's the type of cow she is. I suppose if the other cow comes in a second, you can see there on the scales that she's 610 kilos. She has a maintenance sub-index of around 4 or 5 euro, so she's sitting in between the 0 and the 10. And in Macroom the other day we had an example that was at -5. So quite a big cow, and she was well capable of producing milk, but just a large framed animal, poor body condition. I suppose it's they're not, the lighter animal probably is in poorer condition here than the other animal that's in the scales here at the moment, if we could get her in there in a second. So the principle of this is anyway that these two cows, when you look at them in terms of their genetics, are capable of delivering similar quantities of milk, similar quantities of milk solids, but one of them is going to be cheaper to run than the other. So this column here, there's an equation based on work that's been done in Morpark and updated very recently. In the past we would have used the figure of 4 here times the live weight of the animal to come up with a figure in terms of the maintenance requirement that they're going to eat in dry matter terms. That has been updated to 4.5, and that ties back to the talk with Michael earlier. Higher output, higher demand for nutrient basically to produce that output, and as a result we have higher requirements needed for those animals. So we can see that there's a range of 2,200 kilos of dry matter up to 3,100 kilos of dry matter for your big cow, basically at 600, 700 kilos. And I suppose the key thing I want people to take away from this today is, yes, this cow will produce lots of milk and can produce big kilos of solids, but equally these cows here can produce big kilos of solids as well, and do it more efficiently, okay? So they can be on a par with one another. Michael talked about having cows in his herd that are up on 8,000 litres, and are going to do, if any of you look at your recordings, you will have cows that are up on potential of 600-700 kilos of milk solids, and look like this cow here effectively in terms of their maintenance sub-index. Two of them can come in together there for a second. So that's the point, and I suppose just it's a fictitious scenario, but just to create it for you at the same time, just to put it, to contextualise it, is if we look at the difference between the two. So if we have our 20 euro maintenance cow or our 0 maintenance cow, there's 450 kilos of dry matter more required just for maintenance. So that's walking around, going out to the paddocks, coming back, going back in calf, etc. Nothing for milk production. If we can reduce this down a little bit and we still offer the cows this, they can convert it to milk, okay? So if they're not burning as much energy, I often make the comment when I'm doing the farm walks with Nora O'Donovan, who's the monitor farm advisor. Nora's about this high and as thin as a whip. When we go for the lunch later, I'm going to eat twice as much as Nora. So I'm not very efficient at converting the feed. She's very good efficient. She doesn't convert it at all, actually, to be fair to her. So she'd be a bad element of a cow if we were to have her. So I suppose that as I said, it's fictitious, but if this extra feed is going into the cow in the form of grass at 11 cents a kilo, it costs 50 euros an animal. If it goes in the form of concentrate at 35 cents a kilo as it's bought, or 40 cents a kilo dry matter, it's up at 180 euro. And again, we roll that on to the Dairygold average of 100 cow herd. If we had an entire herd of 0 cows versus a herd of 20, we're going to have a situation where we have to put in 5,000 to 18,000 euros worth more feed just to maintain them. Now you'll never see the check, you'll never write the check for that, because you're paying your contractor for doing your silage, you're paying Dairygold for fertiliser, for to fertilise that silage, etc, etc. But the difference is probably there's a half a pint left at the end of the spring, or there's no pit left at all, that kind of way. You just have to keep feeding the cows, or else if you still have the half pit left, you have very thin cows over at the other side of the yard basically, right? Because they haven't been fed properly. So I think the big thing that we want to get across to people is, you have your own choice, you can milk whatever cow you want to milk, but you don't have to have an elephant of a cow in order to produce milk. The breeding that has gone into cows in the last number of years has the potential to deliver high milk solids from moderately sized cows that are extremely efficient. If you were to go into the Nissan garage inside of Fermoy on the way home and you're looking to change the car, you're going to be looking for one that will do the highest miles to the gallon. And it's the same effectively with the cow. You want the performance from that cow. You want to get the milk out of her for the minimum input into her as such. So we're not talking about starving them, we're talking about feeding them well, but getting the conversion from them. And those lower maintenance cows have the ability to maintain themselves and provide the energy to go towards the milk production subsequently. Okay? So we've run a little bit over time. Before I finish, I want to thank a few people very sincerely. So Timmy Lane is sitting there in front of the crowd there, and Timmy has brought in the cattle to us, the 2 Angus cattle that came in, and we very much appreciate him doing that. There was no questions asked when Michael Mark, the beef advisor, asked Timmy about doing that. There was no concern yet. When do you want him and where do I have to bring him basically? So I'd like you to acknowledge Timmy for doing that. The Dairygold staff, my own staff in Teagasc as well, for helping us, the Munster staff, for doing the background work, I suppose, to running the event. Paul down here on my left for helping us to run the stock in and out and so forth. And I suppose I better thank my brother-in-law who's up over there in the corner who brought in the 2 cows because they're my own cows, okay? So, I hope you got something from today. There's refreshments and obviously there's the stakeholders outside there, Munster and ICBF. If people have questions, they're more than happy to answer them. Thanks for your attention, thanks for coming in, and there's a bit of refreshments afterwards as well.